Alright guys, the last video for chapter 3 is going to be over objective 6, and this is over the cell cycle. If you're in lab, we've already kind of looked at this a little bit in our lab work. But the cell cycle is the process cells go through as they grow and divide. And so this is something that most of the cells in our body are doing, not all of the cells. But the purpose of the cell cycle is just for those cells to be normal cells, copy their DNA, and then they're going to divide to form two new identical cells. Now this is necessary because cells can't grow indefinitely. Big cells become inefficient cells. The membrane can't keep up, and so in order for cells to work properly, they do need to stay small. And so that's one reason why cells divide. They also divide for renewal and repair. And of course, we need cell division for growth. It's how you get taller and your body parts get, your bones get longer and your body parts get bigger. And so, like I said, not all body cells are going to be going through this all of the time. Some of our body cells we're replacing constantly, and some of them we are not. But the cell cycle is going to be all of these stages as cells grow and divide. And so we can break it up into three main stages. Okay, the first one is interphase, and interphase is the majority of the cell cycle. Okay, as you can see here, interphase is going to be all of this. All right, there's actually three parts, and we'll look at those here in a minute. And so about 75 to 90% of the cell's life is probably going to be spent in interphase. Okay, and this is where the cell is being a normal cell. It's doing regular cell activities. It's metabolizing. It's making things. It's building proteins, things like that. And so in interphase, it's just being a normal cell. It's growing, and as we get closer to division, it's getting ready to divide. Now, the next part is mitosis, and mitosis is technically division of the nucleus. And we can break that down into four stages that we call PMAT, okay? Now, in interphase, the DNA was in the chromatin form, that lesser condensed form, that functional form. And then as we enter into mitosis, the DNA is going to condense to form the chromosomes. And we're going to see those tightly compacted chromosomes all throughout mitosis. And then cytokinesis is going to be the final stage. And this is where we divide the rest of the cell. So mitosis is nuclear division, and cytokinesis is going to be division of the cytoplasm. And so all together we have the cell is growing and copying its DNA and getting ready to divide. We have division of the nucleus, and then we have division of the rest of the cell. And so let's look at each of these a little bit more closely. Okay, so in interphase we have three parts. We have G1, S, and G2. The G's technically stand for the word gap, but we can always associate the G's with growth. So the cell is growing and getting ready to divide. It's literally getting bigger and being a normal cell. Now, a very important part of the cell cycle is the S phase, and that's where we replicate that DNA, like we talked about in the last video. And just remember that DNA replication has got to happen before we get new cells, because if I make new cells and don't have DNA to put in them, they're not going to be good cells. So this absolutely has to happen before we get to the division stages. Now, mitosis, as we mentioned earlier, is nuclear division, and it consists of four parts. I like to remember that mitosis is PMAT. PMAT is mitosis. And so the four stages here are prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. And so when we're starting mitosis, there's going to be kind of three important things that happen in prophase. The first thing is we get the chromosomes. So it's no longer going to be in the chromatin form. The DNA is now going to be in the super condensed chromosome form. The nucleus is going to break down because it's going to be kind of hard to separate DNA and form two new nuclei if they're all stuck in the original. And then another thing that's going to happen is the spindle forms, and that's going to be these proteins that help us pull our chromosomes apart. Now, metaphase is pretty simple. In metaphase, the chromosomes line up in the middle. Okay, remember they've been doubled back in the S phase, and so they're going to line up in the middle. In anaphase, the chromosomes are going to be pulled apart, and so each half is going to go to toward the opposite sides of the cell, and they're going to be their own set of chromosomes and the new nuclei. And then in telophase, my two new nuclei are going to form. Now, initially, they're still going to be in the chromosome form, but as they kind of move toward the end of the cell cycle, they're going to go back to that chromatin form. And so after mitosis, I technically have 2 new nuclei. In order to get 2 new cells, we have to divide the cytoplasm and the rest of the cell, and that's what cytokinesis is going to do for us. It's not technically part of mitosis, but these two together equal the division of the cell as a whole. Mitosis divides the nucleus, and cytokinesis divides the rest. And that's going to be the end of chapter 3. Be sure you guys take your quiz and prepare for the lecture test.